In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back. And we are charting a new way forward. To a future with a strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success. And building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. And I'll tell you, this is personal for me. The middle class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. Because, as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone. That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy, where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed. Whether you live in a rural area, small town, or big city. And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries. We will provide access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders. And we will end America's housing shortage and protect Social Security and Medicare. Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows he doesn't actually fight for the middle class. He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends. And he will give them another round of tax breaks that will add up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And all the while, he intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans. Friends, I believe America cannot truly be prosperous unless Americans are fully able to make their own decisions about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and home. But tonight, in America, too many women are not able to make those decisions. And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And now he brags about it. In his words, quote, "I did it and I'm proud to have done it," end quote. Well, I'll tell you, over the past 2 years, I've traveled across our country, and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children, all because doctors are afraid they may go to jail for caring for their patients. Couples just trying to grow their family, cut off in the middle of IVF treatments. Children who have survived sexual assault, potentially being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. This is what's happening in our country because of Donald Trump. And understand, he is not done. As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions. Simply put, they are out of their minds. exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. In this election, many other fundamental freedoms are at stake. The freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and live free from the pollution that fuels the climate crisis. And the freedom that unlocks all the others, the freedom to vote. With this election, we finally have the opportunity to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And let me be clear. After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security, and here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law. I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border. And America, we must also be steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice. I will make sure that we lead the world into the future on space and artificial intelligence, that America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century, and that we strengthen, not abdicate, our global leadership. Trump, on the other hand, threatened to abandon NATO. He encouraged Putin to invade our allies, said Russia could, quote, do whatever the hell they want. 5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression. And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies. With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. And know this, I will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump, Because, they know he is easy to manipulate with flattery and favors. They know Trump won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat himself. And as president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals, because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs. Fellow Americans, I love our country with all my heart. Everywhere I go, in everyone I meet, I see a nation that is ready to move forward, ready for the next step in the incredible journey that is America. I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation and inspired the world. That here, in this country, anything is possible. That nothing is out of reach. An America where we care for one another, look out for one another, and recognize that we have so much more in common than what separates us. That none of us has to fail for all of us to succeed. And that in unity there is strength. You know, our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. America, let us show each other and the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. So let's get out there, let's fight for it, let's get out there, let's vote for it, and together, let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all.
All right, what a speech. We saw it touch on a number of different issues. Let's just go over to our colleague Akanksha for a roundup. Akanksha, how did the main themes land for you? Tell us that first, and then tell us how did it compare to previous speeches we've seen from the likes of Obama, for example, in the years past. Tell us.
I think more than Obama, the immediate comparison comes with Donald Trump because that one went on for quite some time. It actually continued for over an hour from what I can recall. In Chicago, as you can see, is all cheers for Kamala Harris. And I think it was a speech which roughly lasted slightly more than half an hour, but she made her points and she made them so eloquently because she's touched upon foreign policy, she's touched upon domestic policy, not to forget the fact that she's talked about how she comes from a middle class family and that she will be working for the middle class because remember the attacks coming in from the Democrats right from the beginning ever since Kamala Harris was projected as the presumptive nominee for the presidential race was that Donald Trump is out of touch with reality when it comes to the common man. He doesn't have to pay the grocery bills, he doesn't know what the fuel cost is, and let's not forget that the current dispensation in the United States, the VP of which is Kamala Harris, there is tremendous pressure on them to rebuild the economy because they are also facing an inflation high of 4 decades. So she's very much addressed that aspect when she said that, I've fought for the rights of the people. Let's not forget that she was the district attorney back in California, and she's talked about how she's fought for the rights of the common man. She's also talked about border security, which happens to be a very crucial, talking point. You were talking about battleground states, Toya, and Arizona happens to be one of those key swing states where border security is currently an issue. So she's talked about how she will bring back that border security bill. Interesting part is she's saying that there is a path to earn citizenship and that everybody need not be an illegal immigrant. And this is something Donald Trump's been attacking. She's also very, very diplomatically handled the US stance on the war in Gaza. She said that she condemns Israel's own take. She condemns Hamas attack on October 7th last year, and she very much stands for Israel. But at the same time, she will ensure that dignity and all those rights to life are ensured for the people in Gaza who are currently fleeing for life. Remember, a lot of chat was there about how there's been a shift in the stance of Kamala Harris when compared to Joe Biden in terms of funding the wars that are not just in Gaza but also in Ukraine.
Yeah. So, Akansha, the thing with these conventions is every time you hear a speech, you look at the fervor around, you feel like this candidate is going to win it. But the reality on ground, and especially when it comes to the very complicated American election, is very different. A lot of emphasis has been paid this time around on young voters. And we saw a lot of them sort of make an appearance during the convention as well. A lot of young people were asked to come out and speak for Kamala Harris. Is that going to be any key in terms of how the breakup of these key battleground states could actually play out? Because if you look at the numbers, interestingly, despite Biden stepping down and Kamala Harris coming in, the number difference between the Democrats and Republicans hasn't changed much.
The average of the polling is, for Kamala Harris, who's in fact just taken up the nomination as a presumptive nominee earlier. Today is the formal announcement, happened just a month ago. So let's give it to her that in a month she's managed to in fact surpass Donald Trump's ratings on an average is an achievement for the Democrats itself, something which we had not seen when Joe Biden was there. Talking about the connect with the Gen Z and the millennial voters, it is the Democrat stands for pro-life. How they will look into Donald Trump's entire policy on abortion. They will in fact they'll be taking it back is something that promise is of course working very much for the Democrats. You talked about the connect with the youth. You look at the delegates in Democrats, many of them are dressed in white. That goes on to indicate it's a symbolic protest alluding back to the suffrage in 1920 when the women earned their rights to vote, and that is something they are alluding only to get back their rights to abortion.
All right, Akansha, fascinating takeaways, but like Kamala Harris says, it's become an election, like she said, between for the people, a candidate who is for the people, and the other she believes will be an insincere one. So of course, time will tell on what happens over there on those crucial elections in September. For now, we're going to call it a wrap on this edition, and stay tuned to CNN for lots more coming up on the other side.
Goodbye.
Sanjay Roy was in their custody in no time. So Kolkata police, when they looked at his phone, also got to know, sources tell us, that there were various pornographic clips on his phone there. There are some local reports here in the Kolkata media which suggest that before the crime was committed on the morning and evening of 8th of August, Sanjay Roy visited the red light area, the Sonagachi area as well. CBI is not corroborating this, but there are local media reports based on conversations with various sources in that area which suggests that Sanjay Roy did go to the red light area and another aide of his accompanied. So together all this information seems to suggest that he was a sex maniac, and it also suggests that the victim perhaps fell prey to his sexually perverse behavior. And what is it that Sanjay Roy knows? He claims that what he's saying is the truth. However, CBI wants to also put him through a polygraph test, a lie detector test. It has not happened yet, even though the preliminary permission came 2 days ago, because no lawyer wants to represent him. A legal aid counsel has been assigned to him, but CBI is worried, it is concerned that given the allegations and given the public mood here in Kolkata, if Sanjay Roy is taken to a public place like the Sealdah court for the polygraph test procedure, for the polygraph test hearing, there could be a threat to his life and well-being. Therefore, it is likely that the Central Bureau of Investigation could move the Kolkata High Court seeking permission for a virtual hearing. This hearing will perhaps lead to Sanjay Roy giving his consent for the polygraph test. The polygraph test evidence is limited admissibility in a court of law, but it does give the investigating team crucial leads about what aspects of the crime the accused is lying, and then they can continue to probe or delve deeper to know the truth. So for now, it looks like Sanjay Roy is definitely the center of CBI's investigation in the Kolkata rape and murder case. Was Sanjay Roy a habitual sex offender? The main accused arrested in the Kolkata doctor rape and murder case is under the scanner for alleged perverted sexual behavior. He was put through a psychological analysis by the Central Bureau of Investigation. A special team was flown in from Delhi. There were experts who subjected him to psychological analysis, and at the end of that, it seems the experts have come to conclusion that Sanjay Roy shows no remorse while recreating or narrating the scene of crime and the crime that actually happened on the midnight of 8th and 9th of August. The body was discovered on the morning of 9th of August. A post-mortem was carried out. That post-mortem report finding and the psychological analysis is turning out to be key evidence for the Central Bureau of Investigation. Of course, the scientific evidence, the foolproof evidence of whether Sanjay Roy alone was involved or not would be the DNA test. The DNA strands received from the body have been matched with Sanjay Roy. The CBI is non-committal whether it shows a 100% match, whether it shows that anybody else was present in that room. That question is open. But it looks like things are fast moving to a situation where Sanjay Roy's presence and his role in the crime is being established beyond doubt. Now, let me reveal a little more about what the experts have told the CBI after the psychological analysis. They say that A, there's no remorse, there's no sign of remorse that Sanjay Roy shows when he's asked about the crime or his involvement in it. B, the way he's talking seems to suggest a quote-unquote animal instinct. And C, that there is a sexually deviant or perverse behavior that he's showcasing. Now, Kolkata Police's investigation also in the initial days, if you recall, Kolkata Police had taken up this case and for 4 days they had, kept this case in their purview, within their investigative framework. Sanjay Roy was in their custody in no time. So, Kolkata Police, when they looked...
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
Hey, careful.
Also got to know, sources tell us, that there were various pornographic clips on his phone there. There are some local reports here in the Kolkata media which suggest that before the crime was committed on the morning and evening of 8th of August, Sanjay Roy visited the red light area, the Sonagachi area as well. CBI is not corroborating this,